I've bought a lot of books so far this year. Oops. Hello there, welcome or welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi. My name is Samantha and this is my channel where I talk all about books. Anyway, today I am coming to you with a collective book haul of all of the books that I have bought or received so far this year, which is a pretty hefty stack. Now you might be asking yourself, Samantha, are you or are you not doing your TBR tackle series where you try to read your entire physical TBR by the end of the year? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Does that mean that I have stopped buying books? No, it does not. So yeah, I've been doing some book shopping, which honestly makes no sense because I also haven't been working. So I'm like, where am I getting this money from for these books? I don't know. I don't know, but book buying and book reading are two separate hobbies, and I happen to have both of them as hobbies. So here we are. We have a lot of books to talk about. I have about 15, I think, to tell you about. And in my defense, I have read the majority of these already. I just wanted to collect them because they're books that I know I will reread. Because I'm generally quite strict with my book buying. I only buy books which I really feel like I'm gonna love, or I borrow books from the library and then I will buy them physically after the fact if I know that I want to reread them. So that is what this stack mainly is. Anyway, that is quite a bit of prefacing to try and justify my book buying, and you can already see what the first book on the stack is. So let's just talk about the books, shall we? I'm gonna put them on the floor, actually. That might be easier for me. Okay, so I've broken this down into smaller categories. So we're going to start off with romance books. So first of all, I went on to this website called World of Books, and it's basically a used book retailer. So I went on there and then they were having a sale. It was for Valentine's Day, so there was a sale on paperback romances, and I was like, let me scoop up some romances because I want some for the shelf. And I didn't actually own a physical copy of Beach Read by Emily Henry, and I love this book. It's one of my favorite Emily Henrys, although I love most Emily Henry. Well, I need to reread it and see, but at the moment it's probably my third favorite, but it's still like a 4.5/5-star read. Like, I love this book. And I do have it on my Kindle, so I really did not need to get the physical copy, but it looks so cute with the rest of my Emily Henry books. So of course I bought it, and it was secondhand and it was not expensive. I will say the condition is not super great. Like, the pages are quite yellow and the spine is quite broken, and they did not disclose that on the website. So that was annoying, but I don't really mind. I just wanted to have a physical copy so that I could, have all my Emily Henry books together. If you don't know what this book is about, somehow, this book basically follows our two main characters, January and Gus, and they are both writers, and they actually knew each other in college. But since graduating college, they've both become successful writers. But Gus writes these literary fiction, the great American novel type of books, and January writes romance. And the two of them are both experiencing writer's block, and they happen to be staying in the same place over the summer, so they decide to swap genres to try and get over the writer's block and also their rivalry. And I love this book so much. I really need to reread it, but yes, I decided to buy this because I wanted it for the shelf. The next book I also got on that same World of Books order, and that is Behind the Net by Stephanie Archer. I had just heard somebody talking about it. I think it was Chandler. I think she was talking about the second book in this series, and I almost always read romance series out of order by accident, and then I try and go back and read the first book in the series. And because the author is more experienced in the second or third book, I always find that the first book is a letdown. So I'm trying to start with first books in a series, even though it doesn't matter, but then that way I won't be let down, because I've already read their in theory weaker book, although this theory is not foolproof. So I decided to start with the first one, even though I think the second one is probably gonna be better. But this book basically follows our two main characters whose names I've forgotten, and I literally read it this week, so that's not a good sign. Jamie and Pippa, that's their names. They both went to the same high school, but Jamie is 2 years older, so Pippa thought he doesn't know who I am. She always had a crush on him and thought oh, I'm the nerdy band kid, he doesn't know who I am. But he is now an NHL player, and he has just moved back to Vancouver. He needs an assistant, and Pippa ends up getting the assistant job and ends up having to move in with him, and she thinks that he hates her because he's very moody and honestly quite rude to her. But the reason he's rude to her is because he actually does know who she is, and he had a crush on her also. And then he finds out that her ex was really bad in bed, and so he's like, let me show you what that's all about. And it's a romance between them. It was fine. I do want to read the next book because I think it could be better. But yeah, this one was It was okay. I'm probably going to be unhauling it, but yeah, I did buy it. And actually, in that same purchase, I also bought Magnolia Parks, which I'm not even going to bother to haul because it's already in the unhaul pile because I hated that book. If you want to know my full thoughts, I'll link that TBR Tackle episode up in the card because I hated that book so much. Anyway, moving on to some books that I love. The next 4 books I have to show you, well, actually only 3 because one of them has not arrived yet, but it's all of the books in the Rebel Blue Ranch series by Lila Sage. So we have Done and Dusted. I have Swift and Saddled on the way to my house right now. It's actually supposed to be arriving today, but I'm impatient and I wanted to film this video. So here we are. Then I also have Lost and Lassoed, which is my favorite one in the series. And then of course, Wild and Wrangled, which just came out in April. So I was already gonna buy this. And then I came across this one in a shop and it was really discounted. So I was like, let me get that because I know that's my favorite in the series. And then I saw all of the books together when this one came out and I was like, they all look so cute together. So let me just also buy Done and Dusted and Swift and Saddled so that I can have the whole Rebel Blue Ranch series. And I love this series so much. Like, I haven't rated it the most highly of any like romance series I've ever read, but I just love it so much and like I think about it so fondly. And when I look at the covers, they just make me so happy. So I was like, if they're bringing me that much joy, then I really should have the series on my shelf. And I do think I will reread it. Initially I thought I wouldn't reread Done and Dusted because this was the weakest book in the series for me, but when I look at it I'm like, I could see myself rereading that. If I just wanted like a little palette cleanser read, it's like I think less than 300 or just over 300 pages. So, you know, a nice little palette cleanser. I would reread this. And then this one is my favorite. I can definitely see myself rereading this one. I actually already want to. And then I also really enjoyed Wild and Wrangled. So I love this series. If you don't know, it's a cowboy romance series. It is kind of more of a series than interconnected standalones, even though each book does follow a different couple, but they're all connected to characters from the other books. And sometimes you get sort of important information in earlier books. Like, I think you shouldn't read Lost and Lassoed if you haven't already read Done and Dusted, at least Done and Dusted, if not also Swift and Saddled, because you do meet Teddy and Gus, who are the main characters in this book. You meet them and get quite a bit of their backstory in this book. So yeah, I would recommend just reading the whole series because I think they're great. I had to own them. And also Lila Sage is just the cutest. I follow her on Instagram and I love her. So I'm like, let me support you by buying all of your books. Moving on to another new release. I just got Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I have not read it yet, but I plan to very soon. This is actually going to be my book club pick with my 2 best friends. We have a little book club with each other and I think this is going to be our May pick. So I haven't read it yet. It only came out a few days ago for me, but yeah, I have not got to it yet, but I have been hearing some reviews and the reviews are quite mixed. But then a lot of the things I'm hearing are that this leans more like women's fiction, like kind of like a Taylor Jenkins Reid type of book rather than like a traditional Emily Henry romance. So that doesn't really put me off because I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I am like kind of trying to go in with lowered expectations, but I'm not like upset that I bought this. I have a good feeling about it, I hope. And I think reading it with my friends is going to help as well with the overall experience. I don't really know too much about this and I don't want to know too much about it. All I do know is that it follows these 2 writers who are competing to tell this woman's story. So kind of in the way of like The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, if you've read that. Basically, she doesn't talk to anybody and she chooses this reporter and it's like the job of a lifetime to be able to tell that story because nobody else is able to. So it's kind of the same sort of situation except for the fact that these 2 writers are competing to tell the story and I do believe they're going to fall in love along the way. I'm excited. I'm nervous but excited. And finally, the last romance book I have is like the most classic romance book of all time and one of my favorites of all time. And that is, of course, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This is this beautiful illustrated edition. Let me try and find some. Well, I mean, look at those end papers, but let me try and find some. It's got these beautiful color illustrations throughout. I bought this for my friend for her birthday and like it arrived at my house and then I like wrapped it up for her. So I had a little look at it and I just fell absolutely in love with it and I was like, I want that for myself. So I put it on my Christmas list and look at that, just like this little tiny illustration. Oh, it is absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I put it on my Christmas list and I actually got it for my birthday, which is almost Christmas. So yeah, I didn't get this one for myself. I think this is the first book that I have not bought for myself that I've held so far. And yeah, it's like cloth bound and gorgeous. And I just, yeah, I gave it to my friend and I was like, I need this too. If I hadn't got it for my birthday, I probably would have bought it for myself, but I couldn't justify it because in my last book haul, I actually hauled 2 copies of Pride and Prejudice because I bought one for myself and then my granny gave me a little box set of all of Jane Austen's works. So I now have 3 copies of Pride and Prejudice. But I'm not mad about it. I literally walked down the aisle to one of the songs from Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 masterpiece. So yeah, I'm a fan. so it's fine to have 3 copies. And yeah, this is absolutely stunning. The illustrations are by Bill Donovan. Anyway, so that's the last of the romance. And now I have some like literary fiction types of books to haul, which seems like not something I would be hauling. But as I said, I have this book club with my 2 best friends, and our February pick, which really turned into our March pick, was chosen by my friend Izzy, and she chose Hello Beautiful by Ann Napolitano, which I had seen all the time when I worked in the library. I always saw it, and it reminded me so much of that Coco Meller's book, Blue Sisters, I think it is. It reminded me so much of that, and I didn't think that that would be a book that I would enjoy. So I kind of saw this book and was like, you know, I'm not that intrigued. And then I actually like heard what it's about, and I was like, okay, we'll see how it goes. And this is the most surprising book I've read this year, because this was a 5-star read. I freaking loved this book, and I think about it so frequently still, and it's been like 2 months since I read it, but I loved this. This is essentially a Little Women like retelling or reimagining following these 4 sisters called the Padavano sisters, and it mainly focuses on Julia and Sylvie, who are like the 2 older ones, and then the younger ones are twins. And it also follows this guy called William Waters, and he's actually very much a main character in this story. We learn all about his childhood, and then he goes to university, and that's where he meets Julia, and then he becomes a part of all of their lives. And it is just so, I'm gonna cry thinking about it. Oh my god, it's just so beautiful, and like the hope that's in this book, even though it's like, it's really sad at times. This book is really sad because William had a very sad childhood, but it still somehow is so hopeful, and like the friendships in this book are so wonderful. I think something that I love is when an author paints humanity in a really like wonderful, good light, like just showing like the best that there is in humanity, because I think so often in literary fiction it's just harrowing stuff, and it just kind of shows like the worst that could happen and kind of overcoming that trauma. And yes, there is trauma that they do overcome in this book, but I think it's not gratuitous, which I feel like it can be. I was so surprised by this, but I loved it. I would highly recommend it. And the other sort of literary fiction, historical, fantasy, don't really know where to place it, but it's like a Greek mythology retelling, and it was our April book club pick, and that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I'm actually currently reading this. There's a little bookmark there. But yeah, this was our April pick, and when I'm filming this, it is still April, so I have time, barely. But yeah, this book basically follows the story of Patroclus and Achilles. Achilles was basically prophesied to be the greatest warrior of all time, and essentially Patroclus is exiled from his kingdom to go and live in Achilles' kingdom, and they grow up together and they form a friendship, and it turns into more than that, and it's their story. And then Achilles goes to war, and Patroclus is going to go with him, and that's about where I am in the book, and I don't think I'm ready. I have heard that this book is just devastating, so I'm so ready to cry my eyes out, although not today. I have to go out later, so I don't want to be crying all my makeup off. I am so far really enjoying it. I read Circe by this author a couple months ago, and I loved it, so I knew I wanted to read more of her stuff. Unfortunately, this is her only other full-length novel. She has a short story called Galatea, I think, and that's it, I'm pretty sure. So I need Madeline Miller to write some more stuff. Please and thank you. I'm sure she's not watching this, but Madeline, get on it. Okay, we are nearly there. The next 2 books that I'm going to haul are new releases from this year, although they're not that new now, but they did come out this year, and they are like sequels or prequels in a series. So I of course pre-ordered both of these because I was highly anticipating them. So firstly, let's start with the disappointing one, but that is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. This is the 3rd book in the Fourth Wing series, or the Empyrean series. Actually, that's what it's called. I think it's gonna be a 5-book series. This might be where I stop reading this series, unfortunately. I loved Fourth Wing. I can admit that it's not the most well-written book ever. It's not a literary masterpiece, but it is just a fun time. And then I read Iron Flame, and I was like, okay, this wasn't great, but I thought maybe it was just because it was so rushed, because Fourth Wing and Iron Flame came out in the same year. So I thought like, okay, she's just been like pressured to publish these 2 books so close together, so she didn't have enough time to make it really good. But then it was like a 1.5 years between Iron Flame and Onyx Storm, and this was worse than Iron Flame, in my opinion. I found this book to be so boring. I didn't remember who any of the characters were, and I feel like a lot of them were like new characters, and I was just like, who are these people? I just don't think that this was a good book, unfortunately. So this might be where I stop with Fourth Wing. I don't know. But if you don't know, Fourth Wing is basically a book following our main character, Violet Sorrengail. She is always trained to become one of the scholars, because basically they live in this world where there are dragons. And essentially, you basically either become a dragon rider or a scholar, and she wants to be a scholar. But her mom, who's the general of the war college, is basically like, fuck that, you have to be a dragon rider. So she has to go through some trials to get into the school and become a dragon rider. And while she's there, she meets this guy called Xaden Ryerson, who is the son of one of the rebels and should be her like greatest enemy. But maybe something happens between them. I don't know. No spoilers here. And yeah, the series goes from there, but it doesn't really go too far from there because honestly, every book feels the same. Anyway, so yeah, I got Onyx Storm. I'm holding on to it for now. And the other book that I got, which was a new release in a series, was not a disappointment. And that was Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I have been waiting for this book for years because when I read The Hunger Games for the first time, I was like, I want Haymitch's story. And that was 11 years ago, and I didn't think it was ever gonna happen. And then she announced The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and before she told us what it was about, I was like, maybe it's gonna be Haymitch's story. And then it wasn't. So then I was like, okay, she's really never gonna give us this. I had lost hope. And then last year, we got the news that this was coming, and I cannot tell you how excited I was for this, and it delivered. This book was so good. I loved it. I'm not even gonna explain The Hunger Games because I'm sure you already know. So yeah, I was so excited for this. I loved it. I actually did a whole reading vlog where I read this and I reread the original Hunger Games trilogy, and it's full of spoilers, but if you've read this or The Hunger Games and you want to watch that, I'll obviously link that up in the card. I had to buy this, of course, so that also got added to the collection. And then I have two books that I got sent from the publisher. I'm part of the influencer program for Vintage Books, which is an offshoot of Penguin, and so they send me ARCs or sometimes finished copies relatively frequently, and actually they've sent me 2 finished copies this year, which is very exciting, and I cannot wait to get to both of them. So these 2 books have just been released in paperback. So the first one is The Husbands by Holly Gramazio, which I have been very intrigued about since it came out. I just haven't got to it yet, but this basically follows our main character Lauren, and one night she finds a strange man in her flat who claims to be her husband, and basically he goes upstairs for some reason and another man comes down who is now her husband, and basically somehow there are all of these husbands up in her attic who keep on coming down. How do you know whether the one you have now is the good enough one or the wrong one or the best one? And how long should you keep trying to find out? Sort of like a sliding doors situation. I haven't even seen that movie, but I feel like that's what's always like referenced, like, you know, the whole like idea of like the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence sort of situation where you're just like, you know, what should you be happy with? What can you settle with? Or not settle with, but you know, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I feel like I think a lot about like other ways my life could go or could have gone. Like I think a lot about the butterfly effect, and like if I hadn't done this thing on this day, then like I wouldn't have met my husband and things like that. I get very much in my head about that, and I feel like this book is going to explore that idea a little bit. Anyway, I'm very excited to read this, and actually we might read this in my book club at some point, so I'm going to see if they are interested in that. If not, I will try and get to it very soon because obviously the publisher did send it to me, but it is out now in paperback. I love this cover so much. This is like my favorite shade of blue. I'm obsessed. So I hope I love it and I can hold on to it forever. And the last book I have to haul is again from Vintage, so thank you so much to Vintage for sending these books my way. But that book is Beautyland by Marie-Helene Bertino, and this is kind of a like literary sci-fi by the sounds of it. It's basically following our main character Adina, who is a gentle, unforgettable alien for our times, a companion to anyone who's ever felt homesick at home. She's born as Voyager 1. She's launched into space. Adina is a baby of unusual perception. Tiny and jaundiced, she reaches for warmth and light. As a child, she recognizes she's different, not least because of her strange knowledge of a faraway planet. The sudden arrival of a fax machine confirms her suspicions. Her extraterrestrial relatives have sent her to report on the oddities of Earthlings. As Adina makes a life for herself among humans, she starts to wonder, is there a chance there are others like her out there? So yeah, this sounds very interesting. Again, a lot of musings on humanity and stuff like that, which I feel like I'm enjoying at the moment. I'm intrigued, and I don't really read a ton of sci-fi, so yeah, and I love the cover so much. It was actually so funny. I requested this like quite a while ago, and it took them a while to like send them out, I guess, and I was in the bookstore and I saw this book and I was like, oh, that book looks really familiar. I think I requested that. And I had to look at it and I considered buying it, but I was like, no, I don't need anything right now. And then I got home and that same day, the book arrived at my house. So it was meant to be. So I really hope I enjoy this one. Those are all of the like 15-ish books that I have acquired so far this year. Let's hope I don't acquire another 15 anytime soon. I'm trying to think. I don't think I have any other pre-orders right now. I am very excited about the new Taylor Jenkins Reid book that's coming out in June, but otherwise, there's not not a ton on my radar right now. I don't plan to buy anything anytime soon. Fingers crossed. But yeah, that's all that I have. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe down below. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave me a UFO or alien emoji down in your comment for Beautyland. But yeah, that's all that I have. So I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye!